Why confident women go quiet. And I want to be specific about who I mean. Not the woman who doesn't prepare and says she doesn't care. The woman who has gone over the conversation in her head 12 times. She knows exactly what she wants to say. Who, if you asked her an hour before, she'll tell you exactly what is going to happen and how it's going to go. But then the minute arrives and then she watches herself go quiet. What I'm about to say is going to reframe something you have been misunderstanding about yourself for a really long time. The thing that no one talks about is what happens after. Not during, after. When you're replaying it, you're thinking, I knew what to say. I was so prepared. I actually believed in myself. So why did I freeze? That hard part is what messes with you the most. It's not the silence itself. It's the fact that you're thinking, why was I silent in the first place? There's a research in neuroscience done by Stephen Porges that I think is the most useful thing I've come across that applies to this specific experience. What it basically says is that your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment and what's around you, and then it categorizes things based on what is safe and what is not safe. And remember that it is doing this without you knowing that this is happening in your body and before your conscious brain even registers what's happening. The most important thing that I think explains so much is that this system cannot fully separate a social threat from a physical threat. So a room where the stakes are high and a moment where you're so visible and the conversation is so big, important, it can change a big part of your life. To this part of your nervous system, this can register the same way as danger. So no, it is not because you're so sensitive, so weak. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is protecting you. So here is what is actually happening in that moment. You walk in, you had everything planned, you feel okay, and some shift happens. The room is more full than you expected. The person sitting across from you is more intimidated than you anticipated. The stakes just became so real, and your nervous system makes a decision without consulting you and without you being aware of it. It moves from what I'd say is your connected state, where you can think clearly, access your thoughts, and you feel like yourself, into a protected state. And when this is happening, your throat is tightening, your heart is racing, your thoughts go blank, your voice goes somewhere else, you pull inward. Let's call this the shrink reflex, okay? And the reason why I want you to have a name for this is when you can name something, you can stop taking it personally and you can start recognizing it. And this shrink reflex doesn't mean you're failing. It is not evidence of how you actually feel about yourself deeply. It is your nervous system doing a threat assessment and then responding without you knowing before you can have any say whatsoever. You didn't choose to go quiet. It is your nervous system that chose to protect you. And those are very different things. Now here's the part that I think is the actual answer and why everything else you tried has not worked. Your nervous system learned what is safe and what is not through your history. Through every experience where visible cost you something, where standing out felt dangerous in some way, even in a social way where you haven't seen women who look like you taking up full space and being completely okay with it, your body was never taught that visibility is safe. Not as an idea, as something it has actually experienced and stored. And this is exactly why just believing in yourself does not reach it. The shrink reflex doesn't live in your beliefs, it lives in your body and in your nervous system, and you cannot think your way out of a body level response. And here's what you can actually do. And this is the first thing that starts to shift this. The next time you feel the shrink reflex activate, before you try to override it or talk yourself out of it, just name it. Recognize it, take a deep breath out loud in your head, and remember, this is the shrink reflex. My body just made a threat assessment, and this is not evidence of who I am. That's it. That's the first step. Not because naming it makes it disappear or you being silent about something is wrong with you. The silence means that your body is doing its job and it is a completely different story. So what can you do with all this information? And what this changes is that if the shrink reflex is a nervous system response and not a pattern that you have, then everything you've been blaming yourself for is misattributed. You should not feel ashamed, not because you're trying to avoid accountability or because you've been holding yourself accountable for something that was never a personal fail in the first place. You've been diagnosing a body response as a confidence problem and trying to solve it in the wrong level, which means the work, actual work, which is different from anything most people are doing or they think what they're doing. I'm not saying that you have to prepare more. This is not more self-belief, self-motivation. You have to push through. It is teaching your body slowly and repeatedly that visibility is safe. It is a completely different project. And knowing it's the right project changes where you put your energy and mind. So how can you apply this moving through your life? This means that the next time you go quiet in a moment that mattered, you don't owe yourself a guilt spiral. You owe yourself an accurate description of what is actually happening in your body. My body activated the shrink reflex. This is what happened. This is not who I am. Confidence is not an absence of shrink reflex. It is what happens when a woman has practiced over and over being visible in small ways and then lived through it. And her body slowly started to believe that she is safe. This is not a mindset shift at all. This is a body education, and it takes longer than just affirmations, but it actually works. I promise you it works. You have never been unconfident. You have been running in a body that was never shown what safety feels like in the moments that it counts. And that is a different problem, and it has a completely different solution. And I have been thinking about this for a really long time, this gap between where most confidence advice is and the actual work that needs to happen. And there's a lot more to the shrink reflex and than what one video can ever hold. And the women who understand this, that there's 3 layers to this, not that it just exists, but how to actually repattern this and how to recognize it, they move through situations and rooms differently. And I don't mean that in a vague way. I mean the relationship to really important moments changes in a level that it needs to change at. And that is the conversation I want to keep building. I keep going deeper on this here to the people that are closer to this work. Subscribe if this is the kind of thing you want more of. And remember, you have never been unconfident. You have been running on a body that was never taught what safety feels like. This is not a small distinction. This is the whole thing.